Can you recall when our national media, our extremely corrupt politicians, as well as others in the business class and owner class that are very vitriolic against the working people of the country, came along with the arguments that it was the federal spending programs, it was the stimulus checks, the unemployment money that the people were receiving that were keeping them out of a job and at home receiving that money instead of in some rundown establishment working for wages that aren't enough to sustain them. Because I do. Now, that line of attack, that argument was recently exposed by a Bloomberg article that I'll read to you that details the following. Employers are baffled as U.S. benefits end and jobs go begging. Now, before I get into this article, I just want to highlight this is no mystery. This is no grand revelation to those of us that actually pay attention and are at least in some sense a little bit objective to what we see with only our eyes. Now, the article goes on to say emergency unemployment benefits in the U.S. expired 2 weeks ago, on Labor Day, I might add. How grand. But employers who expected an increase in job applications are still largely waiting for them to roll in. Federal programs that had offered an extra $300 per week for jobless Americans provided extended benefits for the long-term unemployed and gave special aid for the self-employed expired September the 6th. Economists and companies expected a wave of interest from workers as the financial lifeline was pulled away, hoping it would provide the incentive to get back into the workplace. Now, let me just stop here for a second and highlight the fact that $300 for unemployment was originally, when the pandemic first begun, $600. But the government, your government, decided that you were so undeserving of that $600, let's just cut it in half and give you the meager $300, as if $600 was so much to begin with. Also, half of the states in this country, literally half, I think it actually was over half, 26, axed the unemployment before it was actually time for it to expire. So during July, mid-June, late June, they axed the unemployment when it actually expired September the 6th. This uptick in jobs, of course, hasn't happened according to employers across industries, the article highlights. People who have been on the sidelines have by and large stayed on the sidelines, said Richard Walquist, president of the American Staffing Association, the country's largest recruitment industry group. Nothing has changed in regards to the benefits that have fallen off, and the need for the people continues to grow. Across the country, staffing firms and businesses have yet to see a marked uptick in employees. Goldman Sachs Group economists forecast that the expiration of the federal program this month, which affected about half of U.S. states after the rest ended benefits early, as I just earlier highlighted, would add 1.3 million people to payrolls by the end of the year. Other analysts said an end to the federal program should increase labor supply. Jobs claims for the week ended September 11 showed an increase in people seeking benefits, though the effects of Hurricane Ida affected the data. In the meantime, the great labor shortage isn't letting up, with a record 10.9 million job openings in July. We're going to see the impact of the federal unemployment benefits ending a couple of months from now. I don't think we're going to see a big spike one way or another, really, said Ann Elizabeth Kunkel, an economist at Indeed Incorporated. We thought things should be better by Labor Day, and they're not. I'll explain why in just a second. It's actually quite easy to see. Applications increased about 10% in the 24 states that ended emergency benefits early, but that was also a boost that lasted only a few weeks. In the restaurant industry, job applications have declined about 3 to 4% each week for the past 9 weeks, including the period following the expiry of boosted benefits, according to Restaurant 365, a restaurant management software company. Now, I want to read this quote by Mr. Walquist that I thought was incredibly damning. As people look at their bank accounts and realize we're coming to the holiday season, we hope people have more incentive to come back. Wow. He says that as people look at their bank accounts, which are largely empty if we're referring to the working class, which has been under assault for decades in this country now, we hope that they'll finally fling themselves back to the workplace and work a job that doesn't pay them pretty much anything at this point, so that they can, get their daughter a doll for Christmas or some shit. Absolutely reprehensible. But look at this. Look at what's happening here. So all this faux nonsense, these tired arguments of, oh, it's so much money they're getting from the federal government, just handouts. They're getting so much money they don't want to come back and work. And so they strip away the federal benefits. They strip away anything that you're entitled to from the federal government, these states do. And they want to pound you into submission. They want to pound the American people, the workforce, into submission so that they're forced to take a job that they don't want. When a lot of people are just literally quite literally sitting back and evaluating, because what this pandemic has done to us, other than confine us to our homes, is make us think about, is this the path that I want to be on? Is this the line of work that I really want to do? Maybe I actually like working at home more. And if you do, kudos to you. I actually have a tweet in front of me from Rokana that I thought was amazing that I want to read. The unemployment rate for those looking for full-time jobs that pay a living wage but are unable to find one is a staggering 22.8%. Again, it's not a labor shortage, it's a living wage shortage. And I mean, he's correct. I mean, what else do you have to say? These jobs are not paying people enough for what they're worth, okay? These businesses, these business owners, these CEOs, they cry wolf. They go on CNN, they go on MSNBC, Fox Business, whatever the fuck it is, and they cry and bitch and moan about how the labor force, how the working people, wow, the cattle, how they see it of this country, the cattle, they're not out doing what they're supposed to be doing. Oh, you know what? Well, good for them. Yeah, good for them. Let them do what they want. I will always be pro-labor and pro-worker because it seems like these days, nobody, especially our elected leaders, aren't. Nobody seems to be in favor of the worker these days. There's so few when it comes to these vile, corrupted individuals in Washington. And these business owners, they spewed this illogical rhetoric that somehow this meager $300 or this one-time $1,400 stimulus check is somehow keeping people from a job. No, that's not what it is at all. And this report just laid it out. There hasn't been an uptick in jobs. There hasn't been an uptick in applications filled. None of that is occurring right now. And to the business class, I say, well, what do you do now? What will you do now? My guess is that they will further pound the people into submission, further inflict pain, anguish, and suffering among them until they finally, after being subjected to such harsh treatment for so long, come in and apply for whatever job it is that they're offering to pay for only minimum wage or just a little bit over.